Hi friends, I'm Tammy K. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be watercolor painting these 5 flowers, and if you could master these simple 5 flowers, then we can paint another 5 flowers, and I'm hoping to continue this series of flowers in the future. So come along with me, let's do it. It's simple and I'll show you exactly what to do. So today I'm painting with my Canson watercolor paper and my Polina Bright paintbrush. So we are going to go ahead and think simple as we're going to start painting some simple flowers. It's really important to get that mindset going. I have a nice light brown, almost a caramel color on my brush, and we just did a half circle shape pointing a little bit off to the left. And let's do another one a little bit higher pointing to the right, top right, I guess. So we're going to actually use some of that pink that's already on my palette, just adding a little bit more water, a little bit more of our paint. And with this, we're just going to lightly touch down and press with the belly of the brush, lift up, add a little bit of a C-curve shape. And then we're following the contour of each petal. That one was straighter. Now we're going to go curve a little bit to the other side, adding a few more petals in. It can feel a little complicated, but this is a really good practice and exercise for that muscle memory and for your eye and hand coordination. So let's do the same type of thing here. And so we're just slowly trying to put in those brush strokes where there's thin, long petals. The one in the middle is kind of straight, and then all those petals are curving around it so that we form this bowl shape. It's almost like the dress of a little dancer or something like that. Okay, you can mop up some of that paint. If you have too much on your paper, just take your clean damp brush, mop it right up, and it works really well. Okay, so I'm taking my sap green paint and a little bit of my cadmium yellow. So I want to lighten up that color for the stem, and we're going to go ahead and add in the stems here with that point, and we want to make sure it matches up with the center of the flower. We're just going to curve it a little bit and curve that one as well so that it looks a little bit more natural than just being really straight. Now a little stem, and then we're going to do a C-curve shape, and then we're going to do another one on the other side, little stem. Sometimes it's hard to angle your brush the right way, but just do the best that you can. And this is a pretty thin leaf that we have going on there. All right, I rinsed my brush here. And the next step in all this is I'm actually grabbing my dark brown paint that you can't see in the corner, and I'm just dipping it straight into the paint well so it's really saturated. We're going to do these little dots, stippling around that centerpiece, leaving some of that caramel color in. Now we're going to get a little bit of spreading, but not much because there's hardly any water on the brush with the paint. If that paint is pretty dry, it's not going to have a lot of movement. All right, rinsing our brush off here, make sure that it's nice and clean. And now I'm going to darken up that paint that I used to paint our petals. So a little bit more paint into the well, a little bit of an orange color as well. We are mixing up our color to start painting our rose. So I do want that pink to be a lot different than the pink we used for these, I don't know, you can call them daisies, or I was thinking black-eyed Susans, but those are typically yellow, unless I'm mistaken. Let me know in comments. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that. What flowers are these here on the left? All right, so we are going to start with a little C-curve shape. That's that half circle in the middle with another one, and we're going to slowly make these half circles, concentric half circles around. I am moving really quickly, and I know sometimes that makes you guys nervous, and I just want to tell you there is a rhyme and there is a reason for why we are moving so fast. So as a mental health therapist, I would say because it's blocking out all those negative thoughts, I'm just taking some clean water here and I'm just spreading out my petals, a little bit more paint. I want to make sure it's not symmetrical, but that we have some random leaves going on. It's essentially, it is a round shape, and the petals are getting a little bit thicker as we get towards the end. Then I'm adding a little bit more saturated paint in the middle just to create some of those shadow lines where those petals are tucked away and deep inside that flower you can't see into it. The light isn't getting there. So I'm spreading it out with a clean damp brush here just to get everything situated and allow that to dry before we add more marks to it. We're going to mix up some of that bluish green color now and utilize that for our leaves. As you can see, I'm usually using whatever leftover paint is in my palette because it's still vital, it's still usable, and why waste it? So I just made some jagged lines for the leaves. Rose leaves tend to have a little bit of wonkiness to them, and so I'm just trying to put that in today for these leaves for this rose. So we're going to do another leaf down here, fill it in, really light paint like I said, and let's do a third leaf right here on the right side. So when I said we're blocking out the thoughts because we're painting quickly, those negative thoughts just creep in and try to ruin our good time. And so if we paint fast, our brain just doesn't have time to catch up and really try to demoralize us and make us feel like our artwork isn't valid or worth attention. So we want to just not be in that mindset, but be in a more positive space. Okay, let's add a little bit more foliage here. Just a couple little marks sometimes, or a tiny little leaf will do. And we'll come back and add some more details later after it's dry, but we've got our first layer, our underpainting down as we're getting together our flowers. So the next one here is going to be a delphinium, and we're going to use this lovely blue paint on our palette. I love painting delphinium. If you've not seen me paint it before, well, get excited because you'll probably see it many times in the future. It's just really easy, it's beginner friendly, and so pretty. So we're going to take our little brush, and using the tip of the brush, we're going to make 5 petals for a nice open flower. This one as well. The flowers are going to get smaller as we get towards the tip of this bunch of flowers. And so we've got some side facing ones where I'm just adding in 1 or 2 little petals. And then we're going to rinse our brush, of course, grab our green. And I really love the Polina Bright brush I'm using, but right now I'm going to switch it out to my really thin liner brush because it's going to give me those beautiful thin lines that I really love when I'm doing snapdragons or delphinium flowers that have a bunch like this, even with lavender. So we're just going to paint in the really thin stem all the way from the top to the bottom. You can make it thicker if you want. I just like it, the look of this. And then you're going to connect every little blossom with a tiny little stem. And once we do that, we can always see how sparse our florals are. So we can go ahead and get our larger brush again. Look at that. I had some green on there, so I made it green. No worries. Add more blue. You'll be good to go. A little bit more water. And then we're just going to do some little blobs of paint and add in those little blossoms and fill that out quite nicely. Now, delphinium usually don't have leaves, which is funny because I'm often painting it with leaves just because I like the look. And that just reminds me of the fact that you can do what you want. It doesn't matter. Paint how you would like to. So I'm adding in, oops, and I did a little drip. Guys, I am kind of a messy painter. It is just the reality of my life, and you have to embrace it. See how I was able to mop up some of that liquid, and right now we're adding in some green moments. We're going to add in some leaves because it's our painting or it's my painting. Leave them out if you prefer, but I always encourage creativity in your artistic style and your expression. That's the most important part of creating art, that you can feel free to put down those brushstrokes how you would like and what pleases you. Okay, now I'm mixing up some more pink into my well of kind of reddish pink color because the next type of flowers we're going to paint will be tulips. And they are also one of my favorite flowers to paint. They're pretty simple, so let's go ahead and get to it. So we're going to do those C-curve shapes. So one on the left here, fill it in, one on the right. Leave a little white space. It looks pretty. Same type of thing. And then I'm going to add a third little petal just peeking up on the left there, just for some interest, a little difference there. And let's do a third bloom because we do have time and space for it. It's more about space than time at this point. So, and then we're going to take our bluish green color and add a little bit more paint there. And now I'm going to go ahead and paint in those lovely stems. So just hold your brush loosely, and if you want to give it a little bit of an arc, you can, or you can make them stick straight. Whatever is going to make sense for you. I hope that you're enjoying this tutorial. If you do like it, please give it a like. Feel free to subscribe to my channel as well. And let me know in comments, what is your favorite flower so far that we've painted? Just doing some really thick, long leaves with really watery paint here, adding a couple more at the top. If you do subscribe to my channel, make sure to hit that notification bell so you know exactly when I post again. So we're just going to leave those alone now, and the fifth set of flowers that we're going to do will be just these really tiny wild flowers. I don't have a name for them, but that's okay. We don't have to name everything that we paint. So we're going to add some of that cadmium yellow to our palette and just move it around with a little extra water. I want it to be pretty thin. Thin layers is kind of what we're just doing for all these flowers today. So we're adding in 5 tiny little petals for some of the flowers, just using the lightest touch, not a lot of pressure from your brush, and really just utilizing the tip of the brush, the shape that it makes. You're really having to do very little work here. And you can even do some side facing flowers if you'd like, just a couple petals, 2 or 3 is going to add a little bit more interest. If you were to do a whole painting, making these flowers a lot bigger, of course, it would look really nice having different perspectives. So now we're going to grab that liner brush again, and I'm going to go for the sap green color this time. So mixing that up in my mixing tray, a little bit of extra water. And this brush is really nice, but it doesn't hold much liquid, not much paint. So you kind of have to paint a little bit and then go back and dip into the paint quite often, but it does make really thin lines, which are really helpful, especially when you're making such tiny flowers. So we're connecting all the flowers with a thin little stem here. I'm letting some of the stems connect all the way down and others just kind of floating in the middle, in the middle there of the bouquet. I'm also wanting to make sure that the stems are at various lengths as well. Just looks a little bit more attractive to the eye. And then you can use that same brush to make tiny little leaves. So just really using the tip of that brush as well, making those tiny marks to fill in your space. And if you feel like you want more flowers here, you can add them. But today I just wanted to show you guys a few of my tips on how to paint these flowers, and they're very simple, they're beginner friendly, and I think they're really fun. And you could even put together some of these to create a really nice springy bouquet. I think that would be great. I'm just going to do a few more of those little green leaves just to fill out this bouquet, and then we're going to let this all dry. Okay, so everything has dried, and now it's time for what I say the fun part, which is adding in the details of the flowers. And you could just leave everything one layer if you wanted to, but I prefer to add a little bit more dimension so that they don't look so flat. So right now I just added a little bit of the caramel color, but now I think it's fun to add a little bit of that darker pink color to these daisies. I'm just gonna call them daisies. So I'm just gonna do some little sketchy lines here, just getting in a little bit of that darker texture, and sketching is kind of, I think, the best way to describe this. Little tiny marks, very light marks with that darker color. Let's go ahead and do that for the other flower as well. And if you wanted to just do a solid kind of paint over the petals, you could do that also. Or you can just leave them. But I find that this gives, again, a little bit more texture and more interest to the florals. And let's just take a little bit more saturated green. So remember, when you're wanting to do that second layer, just add a little bit more paint to what you have mixed up, and you're going to have a great ratio. A little bit more for the stems also. Okay, those little sisters are good to go. So we're going to take that pink color there. I think I want to add in, I've got a reddish pink color in my palette. Funny enough, this palette does not have a true red, but whatever. And we're just going to do little quick brush strokes here, C-curve shapes, little half concentric half circles. That's what I'm trying to say. But they're not even half circles. They're just these curved lines. And then I'm going to take just some cleanish water, because my water isn't really clean, but clean off my brush. And then you can start to blend some of those colors out. I don't want to go too dark, just a little bit light. Paint just to accent what we're doing, but I do want to go a little bit darker in the center, so I just dipped right into that paint well to get some nice bright color. So especially in that middle of the rose, there's a lot of tightness happening with those petals. The light can't get in, so we're trying to emulate that. All right, I'm gonna take some more of my bluish green paint, and we're going to just start with a line down the center of the leaf and then some nice diagonal strokes to show some veins. If you wanted thinner leaf strokes or veins, you can use a liner brush. It might make it look more realistic, but for the purposes here, this brush will work just fine. And see how our rose starts to come to life as we're adding those beautiful accent leaves over the top and making sure they have the details that they need. So I hope you are feeling relaxed and happy to be alive today. If you're feeling any type of stress, please take a deep breath. We're just mixing up some blue. I literally took it straight from the paint well. That means you have to have a damp brush to be able to pick up some of that paint. So we're just going to do some little sketchy marks again on these petals. You could just do these blobs and that would be a lot faster and easier, but this is just really pretty intricate lines. So just some little sketchy marks on maybe the middle of the flower and then also on the edges of some of the petals. Keep it varied. Don't keep it all the same. Change it up here and there. It's going to look really nice together. And of course, we don't want to forget to add in the centers of our flowers once everything is dry. I really like delphinium. I like how these accent marks are coming together pretty nicely. I hope yours are looking good as well. And if you don't exactly like what you're seeing, remember, it's practice. You can always paint it a second time, a third time, a 10th time, and just see how you feel each time. Everything will be different, and you'll kind of see, you'll start to figure out what your painting style is as well. Don't you think it's so rewarding to get to this stage of a painting where you're getting your little detail marks in and things are coming together? I just love this part. So up until this part, I'm always kind of secretly stressed. Will this turn out? And once you get the details on there, you kind of know. Are my shapes correct? Is my perspective off in any way? All right, darker pink paint. We're going to do those sketchy lines once again on our tulips. So some thin lines, and then you can even press down with the belly of the brush and make some thicker ones as well. And a few on the top. And I try to make them varied. I don't want them to look exactly the same. We want things to be different. And so again, pressing down with the belly, I'm just trying to differentiate between the different petals so that we have that styling as well as we want them to look cute. Absolutely. All right, more of that blue-green paint. You know what I'm doing here. Just adding in some little lines, not really being too careful. I just want to create maybe some shadow marks, and we want this to look more 3D popping off the page. That's what we're going for today. We are almost done with our painting. Please let me know in comments at this point, do you have a favorite flower? Let me know what it is, or do you have a suggestion of what flowers to paint next? I would love to make this a series, this being part 1 of my watercolor simple flowers. So let me know in comments what flowers to paint next, and maybe they'll get on the list for the next time. All right, some sap green, just going to darken up my leaves. I made a big boo-boo right there, a little boo-boo. My hand got in the paint at some point. I don't know, I don't recall, but I'm just going to add in some larger leaves here I covered up the one there, and then this will help to make look like everything was intentional. So you got to get creative sometimes with art. And man, I am a messy painter, as I've stated before, and I often have to do splatter or add in a couple florals or trees where I messed up. And you can always be on the lookout for where you can remove paint, taking a clean damp brush and scrubbing lightly that can do a wonder for many of your paintings. Okay, these little wildflowers are almost done, but let's just create that nice dark middle, a little bit of black paint in the center of all these little guys. We have 5 forward facing, so 5 little dots. All right, so lastly, I want to dip into my orange paint after washing off the black from my brush. And we're going to use this as an accent color for our yellow wildflowers. So they're so tiny. We're not going to get a lot of detail out of this, but we can just do some really small dots or some little lines just to have them stand out. Oh, they look so cute. Now they look like little faces. I don't know, little dogs or something. I don't know. It's late at night. My brain is going a little wonky. Who knows what's happening? All right, so getting those on the paper there, and we're pretty much done. And I have to say, I've really enjoyed painting with you guys today. I will definitely do a second part of these flowers. Let me know in comments what I should paint. And remember, I do teach watercolor over on Patreon. The link is in the description. We have bonus content like exclusive tutorials. We do live streams together and other things if you're interested. Thanks for being here, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.